Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Collision. Daniel here to talk about the long-awaited sequel to Chicken Run, Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget, just released on Netflix. I've seen it, so let's talk about it. So it's kind of hard to fathom that it has been 23 years since the original Chicken Run movie released and kind of became like a beloved animated film. And since then, people have been wanting, kind of clamoring for a sequel. But now the wait is finally over. Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget is out on Netflix. And let me say that the wait was worth it because this is a great film. I love this film. I really enjoyed really everything going on about this film. I think sort of the gorgeous claymation animation style, some lovable characters, and some really just wholesome, positive themes really all add up to a winning recipe for just sort of a very charming and entertaining sequel. And kind of as with the original Chicken Run movie, Dawn of the Nugget is more than just its animation style, but there's probably not a better place to start in talking about this film than that distinctive style. Because as expected, the claymation kind of stop motion approach to this film is just totally delightful. I think as technology has advanced in animation, this style of films just seems like it's become more and more just a relic of sort of the past. You just don't see a whole lot of films that do this anymore. But this film is a very emphatic manifesto for just retaining this beautiful style, because it's crazy what they can do just sort of with the claymation. Like the characters in this, like they're just bursting with energy and like their expressions, and it really does feel like almost every second of this about hour and 40-minute runtime feels like a very meticulously crafted labor of love, probably because it was precisely that. And I think just the visuals alone in this are enough kind of reason for people just to root for this movie to succeed. But thankfully, the visuals are not the only positive element that Dawn of the Nugget has going in its favor. The characters, they remain just as endearing as they did 2 decades ago, and like each one of the characters sort of gets their own moment to shine and to sort of be heroic, and just the dynamic and banter between them just remains sort of endlessly amusing. And also just sort of the script in this, like the story, I think probably as a byproduct of the fact that so much labor is involved to get like every second, every frame on screen, that this is just a story that doesn't waste any time. It is very tight, it's very sort of direct. And I think the story itself is relatively simple. It's kind of a fun role reversal of the original, where instead of breaking out of a chicken farm, in this film, the characters have to break into such a place to rescue some of these chickens. And this sort of the film kind of really from start to finish, this maintains a very brisk, kind of high energy excitement all throughout. Because this is a movie that is very kind of action oriented rather than spending a lot of time with more like slowing down for more like emotional drama or character building. At the same time, I think the way that they frame the action makes it so that like the characters always have like an emotional investment. There's always meaning to the action. Like they sort of learn some of these lessons, and they do have some character growth that sort of happens along the way amidst all sort of the fun and crazy action. Let me also just say that this film is legitimately hilarious. There are so many funny kind of jokes. It has a very kind of wry and like understated brand of humor, which is totally up my alley. Because the gags aren't necessarily of like a laugh out loud variety, roll over kind of laughing. But I found myself almost consistently just grinning all throughout this film and just sort of chuckling at just sort of the snappy banter and like the quick wit and sort of side comments in this. And I think there are a couple sort of like, maybe potty humor, which I'm not above. I found those funny as well. But I think for the most part, the humor in this doesn't dumb itself down, and it does aim for more of like a universally kind of relatable humor that I think both parents and their children will find funny. Speaking of just sort of age appropriateness for this film, the film is wholesome. It's not bogged down by, I think, any kind of questionable or concerning content. But at the same time, it can actually be quite intense. Like the stakes in this film are serious, as chickens get like brainwashed and killed and turned into nuggets. And even like the villains in this are like pretty legitimately menacing and frightening. And like some of the characters, like one of them is like struggling almost with like PTSD and having like bad dreams about some of the events of the first film, and like the farmer attacking with an axe. I think for the most part, kids are going to be fine with this. Other than a few chickens that sort of turn into nuggets off screen, no like lasting or like serious harm happens to any of the characters. Still, I do think that maybe parents with like younger kids might be aware that like, for the youngest viewers, there may be some stuff in this that just proves a little bit too intense. As far as content to consider, things going on the surface of this film, there's not a whole lot at all. Language, one character calls a location a hen hole, which assumedly is sort of like a stand-in for saying hell hole. And then there's also just some like British utterances, like, a character says, "What in the blooming heck?" And another one says, "What is this blooming place?" And then I think there's also just like maybe two uses of like the word stupid. And one kind of older character kind of makes the exclamation like, "Ye gods." But as far as language, nothing to be concerned about. Violence, again, there's not a whole lot of violence other than some unfortunate chickens that become nuggets. And kind of the most intense of that is you do sort of see a chicken kind of walk through these curtains, and then you hear like the mechanical sounds of like blades and stuff and spinning, and then you see that chicken reemerge as a bucket of chicken nuggets. So some of that can be intense, like the implications of what's happening to these chickens obviously is violent if you're a chicken. And like one of the human characters also falls into this like chicken processing plant, although they do survive the experience, although shortly after that they're also shot by a bunch of like defensive missiles and explode and kind of leaving their ultimate fate kind of unknown. And like I said too, there's also some like dreamlike remembrances of like the original film where the farmer is attacking these chickens and like swinging axes at them as well. Sexuality, there's nothing here either. The only thing that kind of comes to mind is like the female villain is married to the other kind of male villain in this film. Kind of refers to that he's her second husband. But it seems like she's also in the market for a third husband because sort of their marriage is very clearly established as like one of convenience because she needs his sort of inventive mind, not because that there's any love between them. And there is sort of a couple of moments where this woman is like flirting with another male character, which understandably makes her current husband feel uncomfortable. But other than that, no other kind of content stuff in this film. As far as themes, kind of this messages and things going on beneath the surface of this, probably the main thing is this sort of overcoming fear together and just sort of our duty to just help our fellow man or I guess our fellow chicken, because kind of after the events of the first film and like kind of escaping the horrors that they experienced, the chickens now like live in a sort of a secluded like an island paradise where they're at peace and just sort of enjoying life. And kind of at the start of the film, they discover that some harm has begun to fall on some of these chickens that don't live on their island, and that they're sort of being rounded up and transported to this chicken plant. And kind of their initial response to that is that, hey, we just need to hide. We need to lay low. We need to sort of camouflage ourselves. We need to, we can't risk our own danger or sacrifice our own sort of safe paradise in order to help these other chickens. And then eventually, as the story progresses, they come to understand that no, they do have a duty to help other people, to not just look internally. And there's a great quote. Ginger is like kind of the mother hen in this, where she declares that just because where we live is cut off from the world doesn't mean we are too. No chicken is an island. And the film kind of explores that also, kind of explores like more like the community of these chickens, but also in like a more personal, like of the family, because Rocky and Ginger, kind of the heroic chickens from the first film, are now joined by a daughter, Molly. And kind of the film, because of that, although it's sort of dealing with some of the same themes as maybe the first film does, it does it through sort of the context of the family and kind of learning how to support each other and kind of look past some of their own insecurities or their own fears and pains. And there's a really great scene right kind of near the end of this film where the three of them as a family do take time to sort of confess their own shortcomings and just sort of commit to each other. Like that, there's hardships in the world. We can't just hide away from it, but it doesn't mean we have to face it, as they call it in this, a lone free ranger. We can face it as a group. And although there doesn't appear to be any kind of religious sentiments among the world of these talking chickens, I think the lessons that they do sort of work through are very applicable to Christians. I think of like the Apostle Paul writing to the early church in 1 Corinthians, where he says, if one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. And I do think there's some very positive themes in this film, sort of as pain, as fear kind of threatens to sort of drive people apart, that there sort of is strength, that we are interconnected, and we can kind of walk through these experiences, the good and the bad, together. So in the end, Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget. This is a delightful film. I love this story. I think it's a charming tale. I think it has elevated by some very beautiful and just captivating visuals, and then also just sort of some very wholesome and I think positive messaging. I don't know if it's even possible to live up to the hype of a sequel that comes over 20 years after the original, but at least personally, I feel like this is a very worthy successor to that beloved original film. But hey, I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you guys check this out, if you're a fan of the original film or you're just checking this one out for the first time, jump in the comment section, share your thoughts, let's have a conversation about that. And if you haven't done so, I encourage you guys, subscribe to our channel, become a Collider. We got lots of movie reviews and podcasts and interviews and just other fun stuff. Would love to have you be a part of that. But most of all, guys, thank you for watching. Stay safe and continue to collide through World for Christ.